What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the Backpacking Podcast. As always, I'm John Kelly here with a man who used to have the most beautiful red beard in existence and decided to instead ruin everybody's lives by shaving it off. Jeremiah Stringer.
Yeah, I've been taking a picture every day.
I know you have.
Yeah, I need to do like a full-on time lapse sometime. Now I'm the only one without. Well, I guess technically I have a beard.
You do.
It looks good.
Well, thank you, man.
It's the man that makes the beard, not the other way around. So.
Yeah.
And just like that, let's welcome in our guest for the day.
Oh, welcome.
Mr. Brian Carpenter. How are you, buddy?
Good. It's good to be here. Good to be with you guys.
Yeah, we're glad you're here. And the funny thing is, I love where you're sitting. If you're watching on video right now, you're seeing a wholly different thing than people who are just listening.
Yeah.
But I look taller because Brian's sitting back further in the picture. So my inferiority complex is way lower right now than it normally would be. So this is a good thing. Funny thing, you may not know this, Jeremiah.
What's that?
But Brian, a.k.a. The Flash, and I went to college together.
Oh, I didn't
We've
know
known
that
each
at
other
all.
almost 25 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Happy anniversary.
Thanks, Dad.
And those that don't know, Brian has actually backpacked a lot, like a lot more than me.
Yeah, and let me actually officially introduce Brian to everybody real quick. This is Brian Carpenter, and Brian is, I guess we say, the owner, CEO, founding person of Smoky Mountain Trail Signs.
Yeah, or officially Carpenter Family Woodworking.
Officially Carpenter Family Woodworking, and not only that, he is a AT thru hiker.
Yes.
He's a thru hiker of the SHT Trace, and he's a thru hiker of the Superior Hiking Trail.
Yep. As of this year.
Just
Yeah.
finished that up recently.
Congrats
Actually,
on that.
yeah. So you're like a legit backpacker. You're not like some of these guys we've had on this channel before who will remain nameless.
Me.
Right.
Like Dan Becker, does that guy hike?
Dan.
Oh, shots fired. Shots fired.
Dan.
Dan hikes. He hikes like I do, just on the weekends mostly.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Weekend warriors, man. Weekend warriors.
But man,
I actually had the pleasure of doing the SHT Trace, most of it anyways, with
Yeah.
with Brian. So had a lot of fun hiking that, and we had a lot of crappy times too.
Yeah.
So
Now, were you the person that broke that guy's foot? Were you on that trip?
yes, yeah, he was on when Julio hiked with us, and he broke his foot 2 miles in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was our last kind of pre-hike before we tried to do like 2 weeks in a row through monsoon season and the unplanned, unexpected monsoon season.
Right, in September in Kentucky when it never rains until that year. Yeah. Though that was a funny hike because the day before we did 14 miles of almost all road walking. Like, it was terrible. Like, we got done, we were just like, gosh, that was terrible.
September?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess better in September, though, than in the summer.
Yeah.
That'd been
Well, it was
miserable.
August. It was actually August, I think, when we did that part. Because it
Well.
was hot. Like, it was hot when we were out there.
Yeah.
And then we took a couple weeks off, and then we went to down to Burnt Mill Bridge at the beginning of the SHT Trace.
Yeah, that's a southern terminus.
Yeah. So we did, this was Brian's idea. He goes, because originally we were just going to hike south to north and end up north of Moorhead. And he's like, have you seen what these terminuses look like? I'm like, no. He goes, they're boring.
They suck, don't they,
I
Brian?
was like, they're boring. And
Both of them.
And so then I'm going to let Brian explain what his idea was for a better terminus for both sides of the trail.
Well, so if you know me and know John, we're not the smallest guys in the world.
No.
So when John approached me about doing the SHT, he's like, yeah, we can do this in 2 weeks. And I was like,
2 weeks.
I was wrong.
2
And
weeks.
what's the mileage there?
It's 320. At the time, it was 323
Well, they
miles.
said 323, but after measuring it, everybody agrees it's about 350.
Yeah. So
2 weeks, that's all it takes.
That's all it takes.
Yeah. So, in my head, I can still pull 25-mile days every day. Like I'm still on the AT, but that's not the case. So
Yeah.
I'm like, John, let's kind of reconsider and
Let's revisit this idea.
let's take 2 weeks, do as much as we can.
Mm-hmm.
But why don't we go on and start doing some miles, get them knocked out on the weekend, and let's go from northern terminus down to maybe Moorhead, looking at like the possibility of getting shuttles in or getting dropped off. It just looked a lot easier up north than it did down south. So get dropped off down south, then we just take off and just keep going north. Don't have to worry about cars.
The kicker, and this is the important part.
So when you're looking at like what's a good place to finish up the day hikes and then finish up the 2 weeks. Like where would be a beautiful spot, easy to access, where we could celebrate, have access to good food, good beer, good ice cold L8s. Well, there's a little place called Miguel's.
Oh, Miguel's
right outside
Pizza.
the Red River Gorge.
Yeah.
And so, we're looking at close to 100 miles, get from Moorhead down to Miguel's. And then we're looking at the rest of the trail from the southern terminus back up. So we thought that's a good idea. We both like to eat.
We're doing Miguel's.
And so we're gonna go for that. And so, that trip where Julio broke his foot, I got way ahead of you guys.
Yeah.
Somehow. And so I got to the suspension bridge, and I'm just kind of hanging out and waiting. I'm like, something's wrong. Like, these guys should be here by now. And I see you finally walk up on like the trail that wasn't the Sheltoe.
Yeah.
And you told me what was going on, and I felt bad because I'm like, dang, I got like ahead of you guys. I wish I was there. I could have helped out. And
well, it was funny because what originally happened was he had felt like a hot spot on his foot, and so we stopped, and it was like this huge boulder, like in the middle of nowhere, a couple places to sit. And so he's changing this hot spot on his foot. We're just north of the gorge at this point.
Yeah.
Like there's a section you hike that's a few miles to the gorge, and then you hike through the gorge to get down south to where Miguel's is near Natural Bridge. And so we stop, and Julio is, I don't know where he is. I look at Brian, have you seen Julio? He's like, no, man, I don't know where he is. I'm like, gosh, I hope he's okay. And all of a sudden he comes up really slow, hiking behind us. And he sits down next to me, and he looks me in the eye like just plain as day and goes, brother, I think I broke my foot.
Keep talking.
And I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, I think I broke my foot. I'm like, dude, that's not good.
Yeah.
And he goes, no, I'll be all right. And I said, have you looked at it? He goes, no. I said, let's look at it and see what we're dealing with here. So if we have to, we'll hike back. So he takes his boot off. And dude, you can see the bone like pushing up against the skin. And I'm like, okay, we need to go back. He goes, no, man, I want to finish what I started. Like, are you crazy? He goes, no, man, we got to do this.
this guy's bigger than John and I. He's a big dude.
And he's a tough dude, too. Because we still had 7 miles till we got to the suspension bridge at that point.
Wow.
And so what was supposed to be, I think, like a 15 mile day, for me ended up being 21 miles because of hiking up and hiking back and hiking up and hiking back just to check on him. And we stopped at Indian Arch because we were just there last week. We stopped at Indian Arch where you go up and then you take the right to go down the Sheltoe Trace. And we stop up there, and I grab my phone and I call his wife and I said, Julio, talk to your wife. She's coming to get you when we get down to this parking lot. And so he called her and she drove up and she picked him up there. So he hiked like 5 miles on a broken foot.
Wow.
On a broken foot. Dude's tough as nails.
Now, why didn't you just stay next to him instead of hiking up and then hiking back? Why did you go back and forth instead of, I figured he's going slow. And you could tell he was kind of embarrassed. Like, I guess is the best way to put it. Like, nobody wants to be that guy. Right.
And I didn't want him to feel like he was holding anybody back. So for me, it was kind of a thing. I'm going to let him hike at his pace. I'm just going to go on up ahead. And plus I was looking for him. Because I was like, man, I hope Brian, I'll see when I can catch up and find him. But this dude, okay, he's heavy. Don't get me wrong. Dude's a big dude. This boy can hike.
Full jog.
He can just go, dude. Like, he can just go. And my legs are short. I'm 5'8".
There's pizza at the end of it.
That's true.
It's like holding a candy bar and a stick out in front of me. But this guy can go. Like, we hiked during the Sheltoe hikes. Like, this guy could just haul. I remember we just did a section to Peters Mountain on the Sheltoe Trace, and my feet were just like cheddar cheese or Swiss cheese. They were blistered horribly. I mean, they looked terrible. And we had a road walk that we had to do from Peters Mountain. He just took off. And I remember a mile or two into that, I just looked up ahead. I'm like, I'm just going to let him go. I can't keep up with this guy. It was impressive. Dude can hike. It's no joke, man. It's no joke.
That AT experience, man. You just like, I think it's muscle memory.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
And even on the shuttle, when I started the Superior Hiking Trail, I was telling the shuttle driver, sweet lady, she's like the queen of the Superior Hiking Trail. And I'm like, yeah, I'm planning on doing like 17, 18 miles a day. And you get this done in like 20 days. And she's like, you can't do that. I'm like, why not? She's like, this trail, you'll go home in 2 days. this trail will tear you up. You can't do that. I'm like, well, I have to. Like, not finishing this trail isn't an option. I got to get it done. Like, I have so many miles a day I have to do. I got to do it. She's like, no, you can't do that. And I mean, she was right. The trail is super tough. And so, I mean, first day I did 12 miles, and I was mad.
This is on the Superior?
Yeah, this is on the Superior. And I'm mad because, like, I only did 12 miles.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was going to take 3 hours to get up to, like, the Canadian border just to park the shuttle, and then me hike another 1.5 miles to get to the border.
So it was more of a time thing than it was.
It was a late start.
You being able to handle the height.
It was a late start. The miles were starting to get hard then, but it was almost dark when I got to the first campsite, and I'm like, I don't have the daylight to get to the next one. I don't want to push it the first day on the trail. So I'm like, I can make this up next day. Put in the miles I needed to the next day, but I was still like a little behind, and so I'm trying not to let that eat at me. But I mean, being out there alone, not seeing hardly anybody, it like gets to you a little bit, but then it got to the point where I'm just like, forget this. This trail sucks. Which it doesn't. It's an amazing trail, but in my head I'm just like, this sucks. And I'm like, I just want to get to town. And the biggest mistake I made in my planning, I did not allow myself time to go to towns. I had a 9-day stretch to get to the first town to take a 0, which was too much.
Yeah.
So I started picking up the miles. So before I got to Silver Bay, which was the town I was going to take a 0, like I pulled a 17-mile day, but 13 of those miles was bleeding out to death.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So this is a fun story, and we need to talk about this because I'm on the phone with Brian. Okay, he calls me.
Yeah.
And this is I'm gonna set you. I'm gonna let you tell the story, but I want to set this up because Brian had texted me, I think, and he was just like, I was like, so how's it going? He goes, the only part that stinks, there's nobody out here. So you just by yourself the whole time. And he goes, if I did something like this again, I'd want to come with somebody else and hike with somebody. And I was like, well, give me a call if you need someone to talk to. And so he just gave me a shout. We were talking. And all of a sudden I hear him grunt. And I go, you okay? He goes, yeah. And he keeps talking. And he says, hey, man, I fell. I'll call you back. I'm like, okay. And so I'll let him tell you exactly what happened. But this is crazy. This is crazy.
Yeah. So all this, the side journey we're on right now is just to say, like, the muscle memory comes back. You end up putting in the miles you need to. But yeah, I'm shooting for 19-mile day on this day because the next day I'm getting to a town, and town means a hotel room, a shower, laundry, hot food, all the above, and I'm just ready. Like it's been 8 days of just kind of solitude, loneliness, beautiful views, but super tough trail, but a pretty good experience. I'm trying to stay out of my head because if I get in my head, then I'm having a terrible time.
Right.
So I have this day. It's like the day before getting into town. I'm like, all right, 19 miles. I got this. I'm doing it. I'm pushing because the next day I have 4 easy miles to get to town, and then I get a long Nero, and then the 0 the next day. Like, I'm going to be money. Like, I'll be burning up the trail after that. So I'm pushing the miles. I'm off to a great start. Like, the leaves had already fallen off the trees. Like, it's just beautiful. You can see everything. You can see the lake. Like, when you're up on this mountain and you see Lake Superior through the trees, it's just beautiful because all you see is the lake and nothing else. And I'm booking it. I'm making great time. And I called John because I'm feeling a little lonely. So I'm going to call one of my hiking buddies and check in, see how he's doing. And we're talking. And my foot catches a root or a rock or something. I couldn't tell because the trail was just completely covered in leaves. I go flying forward, which is nothing new. Like, I've fallen before.
Yeah.
I got bruises and scars to show those. I mean, Sheltoe, gosh.
Oh, that's not talking about that.
Yeah. If you want to see 2 guys falling down more than they're hiking, it's our Sheltoe
Peter's
hike.
Mountain especially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I bite it, and of course I'm talking to John at the same time, and just kind of trying to collect myself. I get my backpack on, everything, undo my backpack, throw my hiking poles down, and I kind of look over by my feet and notice a little bit of blood on some leaves. I'm like, that's weird. Like, I didn't feel like I fell hard, but I see a little puddle of blood. So I kind of roll my leg over, and it's just gushing out from my knee. Like,
were you wearing shorts?
Yeah, always.
This dude, like, no kidding. If he's in the Smoky Mountains and it's like 12 degrees out, he's hiking in shorts.
Yeah. Always in the shorts.
Yeah,
It's hardcore, man.
Weird.
Him and Miyagi, dude. Like, they're They must be kindred spirits.
Sometimes there's long underwear on under the shorts, but
hey,
most times it's just shorts. But yeah, I'm bleeding. It's gushing out of my knee. I'm like, John, I'm going to call you back. I'm bleeding out pretty bad, which is a funny way to kind of leave a conversation. So I hang up with him and look at my knee, and it's gross. It's just, there's like pieces of leaf and stuff in there, and I'm like, all right, this isn't good. First concern is like, I gotta get the bleeding to stop. So I keep a clot patch, one of those quick clot patches in my first aid kit. Like my dad, like for his sanity, he wants me to keep one of those in my kit all the time.
It's a good thing you did.
Yeah, I'm glad I did. Like it's bulky, but put that on, taped it up to my knee. It still looks like you're bleeding because it stops the platelets, and that's what clogs or clots in your artery or your veins or whatever. But the water is still coming out, and the water's still red, so it still looks like you're bleeding, but it's clotting. It's just fluid.
It's more like plasma or something like coming out of like fluid. Yeah.
What did you tape it on with?
Leukotape.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Which
clutch for blisters and all the above.
Clutch, but it pulls every hair out of your leg, wherever you tape.
Oh, I've learned that stuff's great unless you're sweating. Then you can't get
your sweat off.
Well, if you're sweating before you put it on.
Oh, okay.
Because then you can't get it to stick to your skin. It's just like a pain in the butt. Like I've never had a good time with it when I'm already sweating. So I'm sure with it being cooler outside, that probably helped out a ton.
Yeah. I have a great manscaping story with Leukotape too. Sure.
Yeah.
On AT.
It'll sure rip off the toe hair.
It'll rip off everything. It's PG podcast, so I'll leave it at that. But, so yeah, I tape myself up and I keep on hiking because you're not gonna do any good just sitting there in the woods. And I knew I was still quite a ways from any road. So take off hiking, and I know there's a campsite coming up about another 6 miles. And the Superior Hiking Trail has great campsites. They're well distinguished, well marked. Every campsite has like benches around a fire ring, so like there's a place to sit down. So I get to this campsite, and it is the only campsite on the whole trail that they closed because of bear activity. So I'm like, well, at least they're not grizzly bears. Like they're not going to smell my blood and be like, yes, lunch.
I know, right?
So I get there and I'm cleaning up. I take filtered water. I'm pouring it into my knee hole, and which is what it is essentially. It's a giant hole, like a gash in my knee. And
yeah, you were showing us pictures.
It's pretty.
That was
nasty.
gross, man.
Yeah,
I think it was bad.
So I'm pouring filtered water in it, and which was important to use filtered water for that case. I also had antibacterial wet wipes, and I'm like kind of in the hole. I saw some loose skin, and I tried pulling at it to see like if it would come off, try to get it away from the hole, and it wouldn't. And so I took my pocket knife, which was very dirty and nasty, and cut that off. Just kind of chucked it in the leaves. And didn't realize how thick of like that skin section was, which they could have probably used that to like stitch me up. And,
I would say it was like a half an inch deep section of skin, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
You fed the coyotes that night.
Yeah, something ain't good that night. But did that, cleaned it up really well. Used that antibacterial wet wipes on it. Put a Band-Aid on it, which was all I had left. I didn't have any gauze pads or anything. Put some Leukotape over that and kept hiking. And like within a mile, saw a bear, and it took off running. Luckily, it was a small one too, so I wasn't too scared. But
it didn't smell your blood.
No, or it did. And ran off anyway. Yeah, I'm not gonna say that. Edit that one out. So took off. Luckily, there's a great community of people on a Facebook group up there that are part of the Superior Hiking Trail community. So I posted to the page and was like, anyone in the area that could give me a ride to town would be like greatly appreciated. And didn't have any luck, but fortunately, which is something I learned on the AT, trail magic goes a long way. And a friend of mine that I met on the AT reached out to me. He said, "Hey man, I just saw your post. I know some people up there. I just got a hold of a guy who can shuttle you from this highway you're going to cross. He'll take you into Silver Bay," and offered to pay for it. I'm like, I got cash, so that's cool. Thank you. So met this guy at the road crossing. When I got to the road, I had to wait for him for a few minutes, but there happened to be a group of nurses that were out hiking. And so they offered some first aid stuff. They didn't do anything to clean it, but they offered me some bandages and stuff just to wrap it up better. Shuttle driver got there. Took me to a gas station that had a little deli. I was able to get a pizza real quick before they closed, and he took me to the hotel. And then the hotel just happened to be next door to the urgent care center. So
oh, nice.
Next morning, I got to walk there as soon as they opened, and they took me in, cleaned it up. They were impressed with how well I cleaned it. Told me I shouldn't have cut off the extra skin, and then kind of gave me some stuff to keep it wrapped up and sent me on my way.
So what you're telling, if you're giving a tip for backpackers, if you take out a huge chunk of your leg, don't cut off the excess skin.
Yeah, or your leg. They can probably save
don't
your leg.
Don't cut off your leg either. That would be bad. Yeah. Severing your body parts is not a good
Unless
idea.
you're in a 27-hour later scenario, then maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that was kind of crazy. So getting through all that, I was anxious to get back on the trail because again, I'm on a tight deadline, and so the next day I get out and I'm just not feeling it mentally. Like I should have taken a few more days off, just let my leg heal. Wasn't going to do it. I was too stubborn. Pulled maybe a 12-mile day that next day, which was the toughest 12 miles I think I'd faced the whole trail.
I'll bet that hurt.
It did. I ran into a guy. There were two guys that were going southbound as well, and I'd met them at different times, got ahead of them like all the time. But this one guy caught up with me, and he was going into Silver Bay, and it was so tempting to just be like, I'll just go with you, take the rest of the day off. But I kept going, which I'm glad I did. It was another. For me mentally, it was a good thing I did because I was able to all right, I did this. And then within a couple days, I pulled 4 20-mile days and then finished with a 23-mile day to get into Duluth.
You hear this guy, 4 20-mile days, a 23-mile day, and he had a hole in his leg.
Yeah. And
that they held together with little butterfly
butterfly strips.
Strips. Isn't that what you said they put on it?
Yeah, yeah. And they as soon as I unwrapped my leg, they were long gone.
Yeah.
They fell off early. Man. But once I got to Duluth, I was able to take another day to just rest. I got to this hostel, and the hostel, I guess their fire alarm went off that day. And so their sprinklers went off, and they had to evacuate. And so they weren't allowed to have anyone, but I already made reservations. And I was exhausted. I was the night before I got to Duluth, it was just a massive rainstorm. And I was camping alone, which was pretty much 99% of my nights. I was all by myself at a campsite, and wake up in the morning to everything. I'm just in the middle of a mud pit. It rained that hard, it just turned to mud. I was lucky that the moose pond right next to my campsite didn't raise up enough to.
Oh, that would have been awful.
Flood me.
Yeah.
But everything, bottom of my tent, my sleeping pad, my bag, backpack, everything has just mud on it, and so. I knew I had in my head, I need to pull a 15, 20-mile day today, then a few miles tomorrow to get to Duluth. I'm just screw it. I just took off and met a guy about 2 miles in who was very familiar with the area, lived in Duluth. And so he hiked out with me, and he actually set a really good pace. And we did a 3-mile-an-hour pace the whole way out. And
wow, that's cooking, man.
And made it out to the non-traditional southern terminus, which is a parking lot outside of Duluth. And the reason they have a terminus there is that there is almost 15 miles through the city of Duluth that you hike where there's no hostel, campsite, anything. You can get a hotel. Mm-hmm. And then there's about 10, 15 miles outside of Duluth on the other side where there's still no campsites available until you get down into the southern terminus area, and then there's campground there. So it's a mile from the terminus.
So there's a big section of this trail you're actually hiking through the city.
Yeah.
So it's urban hiking for some of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really? I didn't know that.
So once I got to the hostel, I was able to they're well, we're really not supposed to take you in, but they saw me and I just looked like I'd been through hell.
Have some pity.
Yeah. Yeah. So they took me in, showed me where the shower was. They had a sauna there. They showed me how to use that. And then they cooked me dinner, which was amazing. And they were just super hospitable. And there was no one else there that night.
Are you allowed to say the name?
No, I don't want to say it just because they
just to make sure.
Yeah, because they took me in and they probably shouldn't have based on fire code or whatever.
Well, luckily you already had a reservation too,
Yeah.
so that probably helped a little bit too. It wasn't like you just randomly walked up, kind of like we did when we went to Cherry Creek Lodge. So
that was trail magic too.
That was.
And so after a shower, which everyone knows after you've been hiking a couple days, shower can change your whole world. And eating a hot meal, I took the next day off, and then from there was able I just day hiked the rest of the trail, and which was great on my knee, great for me mentally, and then I was able to finish strong final day. And yeah, pulling a couple 20-mile days through that, just even with an injury, like,
oh my gosh,
sometimes you just want to be done. So
I don't know a whole lot about the Superior Hiking Trail. If just the average Joe was going out there and they wanted to through hike it, what's the mileage? What's the days like?
So it is 310-ish miles. Depends on which southern terminus you use. So if you do the full through hike, you're going to do about 310 miles. If you do the traditional through hike, it's only 270 ish. And that'll take you'll stop before you get into Duluth from the northern terminus.
Yeah.
I started Canadian border and went south for a couple of reasons. The northern terminus is way more, or northern end is way more remote. And so I figured if I could get that hard part done first, I'd be in good shape to finish strong.
Yeah.
And so, for timing wise too, I was able to see the leaves that end a peak. So, I mean, all the bright oranges and reds, like they were popping. So like my scenery was just 100%, like perfect.
What's the start and end date for you?
I started September 27th and finished October 17th, maybe.
Okay.
It was 18 days of hiking and 2 0 days.
Yeah.
That's what I did it in.
Yeah, dude, you killed it on that. I mean, like, especially because I've talked to you about your hiking. You don't train before you go out on the trail. You just get out and go.
Couch to 100K.
Yeah, that's what it is. Couch 300K.
Yeah, couch to 500K.
So when you did this, when you got done with the trail, how would you rank, like you've now done 3 through hikes. Of the 3, which obviously I think the AT would be the most difficult overall, but what would you say was the most difficult hiking of the 3?
That's tough. They all offered different difficulties. So when we were on the Sheltowee, a lot of like the weather that we encountered, the high creeks and stuff like that, Cumberland River being flooded and having to deal with the narrow way and the copperheads and all that in the dark. Like, I mean, that's a different difficulty than the straight ups, straight downs through the Sawtooth Mountains of the Superior hiking trails. So each of them had their own difficulty. I think, what made the experience good on the Sheltowee, even though it was tough, was hiking like with you, like having a hiking partner to just vent frustration, to kind of encourage to push on, stuff like that. I didn't have that on the Superior hiking trail. I'd run into a guy every once in a while, and you get into, I think there's like 5 to 7 state parks that you go through, and they're crowded. There's a ton of people in those, but they're out for the day. They're just hiking to a waterfall. So are you like, you're saying like the mental game was really tough? The mental game was a lot tougher. Like even driving up, like hitting all the tolls and outside of Chicago, I got pulled over for the first time in like 20 years, speeding through Wisconsin, and luckily didn't get a ticket. I got a warning, which was super awesome.
Yeah.
But, just getting up there and like trying to like, because I didn't have any like downtime between, like, here I'm going to take a couple of days off work and I'm going to drive up. Like, I got off work, finished my shift, and took off. Like, oh man, it was like one of those. Like, all right, let's do this. Wow. So there wasn't like a mental gap. So you didn't have like a night where you just kind of chilled out and it was on it. Yeah. Wow. So it was.
I gotta have some cushion time.
Yeah, it really makes all the difference. Yeah. Like even like I'll take off a weekend in Smokies and I'll leave right after work and go hike and come back and I'm fine because I'm like that's second home to me. But like you take off, drive like however many 100 miles it is to get up to the Wisconsin or Minnesota border. And then you're like, all right, see everyone in 3 weeks. Like,
right.
Yeah, a lot of people think a lot about like what their through hike's going to be like, how many zeros they're taking, and what their resupplies look like. But you also have to consider your travel time outside of your hike time. Like when I was doing the long trail, I flew out of Nashville, and I don't live in Nashville.
Right. That's a meme, by the way. That's a meme, by the way. Yeah. We just had to talk about this in our last episode. Whenever Jeremiah says, when I was hiking the long trail.
Yeah. That's me and a meme. Yeah. So you got to drive to where you're flying out of, fly, sometimes change flights. Plus you have your gear, and there's certain things you can't take on the plane, period.
So you got to go somewhere and buy fuel and things like that. Yeah.
Had to buy that afterward. Plus, like the trailhead doesn't start at the airport.
Right.
So I had to get a hotel outside the city where the terminus was, because usually they're in the middle of nowhere because you're backpacking, right? So it's the woods. So then you drive up there, you actually do your backpacking, and when you go into the city, you have to have a ride into the city most of the time. So you have to hitch or pay for a shuttle. And then you have to get back to where you started, like hitchhiking.
Yep.
And then when you get to the end, typically you got to have a place to sleep and shower because you don't want to get on a plane or drive for 12 hours.
When you really got to pray too, like that when you go hitching, it's actually a place where people will pick you up. We hitched on the Sheltoe Trace, and we had one car that stopped for us, and there was no way we were getting inside of that car because we did not fit. It was like this family that had a station wagon.
And they were living in it, basically.
Yeah, there was like every personal belonging of theirs was inside the back of it. We just literally would not fit inside of it.
Yeah.
But they were like, we could figure it out for you. And we're like, no, you're good. But nobody else would even like wave at us. Like they would just drive right by. So you're kind of hoping somebody will pick you up. We lucked out and found like this amazing lady that came and picked us up, and we called a shuttle in. But then that costs you money.
Right.
So
yeah, well, if you have the money, sometimes the shuttle service is invaluable.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, those Facebook groups are very, very handy, getting the information on phone numbers for shuttles and that kind of thing.
It really makes you wonder how they pulled it off 25 years ago.
Tough,
doing
man.
This stuff, you know. I mean, you think about it. We didn't have the GPS units we have now. We didn't have smartphones where we could look on them and we could see where we are on a map. You know, you're literally using paper maps and hoping for the best.
No Dyneema.
No
frame backpack for sure.
External frame backpacks. You're carrying 60 pounds on your back the whole time. I mean, dude, you just think about it from now, like the way it is now. Dude, we got it so easy.
Yeah.
I love it. I'm glad we got it easy.
Me too. I feel like a sissy.
I don't care if I feel empowered is what I feel.
That's okay.
At the same time, if you can up and hike a couple hundred miles, you're not a sissy. You're doing something a lot of people dream they can do. So
that's true. I guess
something to consider. Whatever makes the journey easier.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how you get there, but if you do it, so it's.
Yeah, you know, it doesn't matter how nice your gear is and like how ultralight. All those backpacking trips are still hard for me.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what I take or how long it takes.
Going uphill is never
hard.
easy. I don't care who you are. Going uphill is still going uphill.
Even without weight.
Yeah.
But it's, I mean, I was lightest base weight I've had was hiking the Superior. I upgraded a lot of gear before I hiked.
Can we talk about your gear?
Yeah.
What was your base weight?
So it was pushing right at 13 pounds.
Wow,
that's great.
So light.
That's
man.
Great. Considering
you were borderline. That's borderline ultralight because ultralight's like at 10 pounds, right?
I think so.
Yeah. So you were just barely above ultralight.
My AT base weight was 32 pounds.
Wow.
It was 45 pounds with food and water.
You really switched out some gear.
Yeah. So on AT, I used a Deuter Air Contact 65. Empty is almost 7 pounds. Great backpack. Didn't get a single freaking hole. The whole 2,184 miles.
Built
in that
to
backpack.
last.
It is bomb proof. But
you used that on the Sheltoe too. Isn't that the same one?
No.
Which one did you use on the Sheltoe?
I used a Marmot.
That's right. It was a Marmot. That's right.
Which I was planning on using on the Superior, and I'm like, or I could go a little lighter, and I went with a Hyperlight and loved it. First time using. Like I didn't get any pre-hikes in with it. I went cold. And
we were talking about this on the way back. Okay, we all went out to lunch. If you're watching online and you're listening, we went out to lunch, went to Skyline Chili, and it was awesome. Had a great lunch.
Great
Mr.
three-way.
Backpacking with Jason Sir met up with us. What's that?
Said it was a great three-way.
It was great. And so then we get back, and on the way, I'm talking to him about his backpack, and he goes, so yeah, I got it and just started hiking. I was like, you didn't even like practice like packing and unpacking? No, just got out there. You know, you were talking about the tarp in our last episode about how I took a tarp out this weekend I'd never used before.
Yeah, I was making fun of John because we hadn't used any war bonnet stuff, and it doesn't have any attachments. It's just a raw tarp.
It's just tarp.
Straight out of the package, just like if you bought it.
Which is what I anticipated when he said we were getting them. But
so I show up, and I'm like, here's the tarp. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to take that one out. just on the spot.
Yeah.
And then 10 minutes later, we're walking, and he's setting it up that night, no issues. But I always try to try stuff out at home.
And he took a backpack. It's one thing to take a tarp, okay? Tarp's not crazy, but a backpack, that is like the gutsiest move. Like, to just...
It's a backpack.
Yeah, but what if it didn't fit, man?
No, I did make sure it fit.
Oh,
like
okay.
Okay.
So I actually, like, I know my body. I know my body type, and which is funny because we went to an REI one time, and my wife was looking for a newer backpack, and the guy comes over and he's like, "Do you need any help trying anything on?" I'm like, "No, we're good. We got it." And I knew what size she needed, and I knew how to measure her and everything, and so he came back over. He's like, "Well, why don't we measure her?" I'm like, "No, she's a small." Well, we should measure her to make. I'm like, "It's okay. She's a small." And he insisted. And I'm like, "Go ahead." Sure enough, she was a small.
They mean well.
They do, and I'm just like, you try not to be this guy who's like, "I've hiked the AT. It's okay."
Yeah.
Like, I know what I'm talking about. Like,
Yeah, you try not to be holier than thou.
Yeah. It's like your heavy gear. How cute! Like, and I love REI.
And they're trained that they're supposed to do that because you aren't the normal person that comes in.
Right.
Like the normal person that comes in has no clue what they're looking for, and so they come in saying, "Yeah, I know what I'm talking about," and they don't. They're just trying to look good for this cute lady they're with. They're gonna be like, why don't you let me help you?
Yeah.
You're about to embarrass yourself. And so like they have no idea. So, of course, that beard should have given it away.
Yeah. Well,
anytime someone sees that beard and someone's like buying backpacking gear and they have a beard like this guy, you should automatically go, this guy knows what he's talking about.
It's like, I need a backpack that's going to hold my beer and get me where I'm going. So, but yeah, I know my body. I know like what size I need, but I did go to our local outfitter and had them measure me just to be on the safe side because I wanted to get it right.
Yeah.
Time wise, I'm ordering this thing 2 weeks before my hike.
Oh,
and
cutting it close.
You're making fun of a tarp, dude. Look at this thing. This is crazy.
So like Hyperlight was incredible through the whole process. As I posted a picture of like our online store on my Instagram story. Just like, should I, shouldn't I? Would it even get here on time? I tagged them in it. Their customer service emailed or messaged me back right away. They're like, when do you need it by? We can make sure we have it to you by then. Wow. And I was like, and I was on the fence about getting it because it's like, it's a big investment to buy a new backpack. And so I was just like, sold. I'm like, I need it by this date. They had it to me. Like, usually they have to make everything on the spot. I don't know if they made it fresh or if they had one available or what the deal was, but I had it within 2 days.
Wow.
So it was super quick. So Hyperlight, like, they end up getting... And then I ended up ordering like the little pouch to go on the pack too, because it was waterproof. Keep my phone in it.
Did you get the pack pods that they put inside that they used to put inside the pack? No. I've heard really good things about those too.
No, I didn't feel like it's glorified stuff sack.
Yeah.
I have stuff sacks. You can never have too many stuff sacks, but I have too many stuff sacks.
Okay.
Especially thanks to Enlightened Equipment, who accidentally threw in like 3 stuff sacks with my one quilt. So
yeah, that's nice. Okay, so question for you. We're going to change topics just a little bit.
Okay.
I want to do this because I have a question for you. I've never asked you this question, and I've always wanted to. Remember, this is a PG podcast,
I'll do my best.
I need your help with this one. But if you could name the most hiker trash thing you've ever done in your life on the trail, what would it be?
Can't say it if we're keeping it PG.
Okay, what's the second worst hiker trash thing you've ever done?
Besides cutting a big chunk of skin off and just throwing it on the ground? Oh, man. Well, it had to be poop related.
It always is.
It always comes back to poop.
Poop always has to come up at some point.
I mean, I've eaten food I've dropped on the ground. That's standard.
Well, you ate chips out of the trash, didn't you, or something like that?
Yeah, jalapeno.
Okay, so along those lines, I did a.
We just opened Pandora's box.
Yeah, wow. So I did a work for stay at the Yellow Deli in Vermont, which is basically a cult.
Yes, I had experience with the Yellow Deli.
So super nice people.
Yes.
Just don't drink their Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have a lot of guys working for them.
They got a lot of Kool-Aid. But it
really is a cult, John.
Yeah,
I'm not
really
joking. It is
What's
like
it
full
called?
on
the Yellow Deli.
Oh, we're
They have
right
a couple.
now.
They have a couple locations, but they grow their own like vegetables and stuff. They super nice people.
Yeah.
But it's a deli, and then above them is a hostel.
Yeah,
So
we ate there in
Yeah,
Vermont.
it was good food.
Yeah.
They have all kinds of like crazy herbal teas and stuff like that. And so we got there, and I did a work for stay, which essentially you do some work for them. They let you stay in the hostel at a reduced rate or a free rate. And so basically I was bussing tables. And so I'd come up behind, non-hiker people, but just people in town enjoying their afternoon, eating some delicious food.
Right.
They'd leave. I'd go take their plates off the table and take them to the back and, throw the trash away and get them ready to be cleaned.
Mm-hmm.
I'd eat the pickles, the potato chips, the half-eaten sandwiches. Like, it didn't get thrown away. I just ate it.
This is pre-COVID. Will we ever go back?
Yeah. I mean, the pickles may have had a bite taken out of them. Like, it's like it was behind a curtain. They didn't see it.
That's
it was free food.
That's the definition of hiker trash.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I like that.
Yeah. So that's a good non-poop story example of some hiker trash stuff. So.
No, I do remember though, when we were hiking, the day that Julio broke his foot, the day before, we went to this restaurant to eat, and it was his dad was our shuttle basically, and so he had dropped us off at our campsite, or he had dropped us off to hike that morning, and then met us at the campsite to give us our gear. So we hiked
without our gear for
14
miles,
miles,
14, 15
about 14 miles.
Yeah.
And so he dropped our gear off at our campsite and met with us. And we were sitting there because you guys just want to go out for a restaurant instead of eating here at the camp. We're like, well, yeah, of course I want to go to a restaurant. So we went to this like hole-in-the-wall country food restaurant, and you had a cheeseburger, right? The next day.
Oh, it wasn't even the next day.
It wasn't even the next day.
It was that night.
He goes, I got to go poop. Okay. So he grabs his gear and he takes off. He goes back, and this is no joke. This is what he says to me. He looks at me and goes, there's not a cat hole deep enough.
It was. I couldn't get out of my tent fast enough. It hit me.
I mean,
I couldn't get off the trail fast enough. Like, I wasn't off the trail hardly at all.
That's that
there
greasy
were other
burger.
people. There were some other people camping right there, and I was just like,
these older guys.
Look away.
Full eye contact.
Oh, it was embarrassing. I'm just like, you guys are. Please don't remember this come the Sheltoe Awards night, because they were all the challenge hikers, and they just saw me make a mad dash toward a bush. And
now on a normal instance, whenever it's not an emergency poop, are you a butt hanging off a down tree? Are you a hanging onto a tree? Are you a squatter?
Okay, so I'm the worst trail pooper in the history of through hikers.
I don't know what that means.
On the AT, I pooped 3 times.
He's like you, dude. He does everything. He plays the poop game.
Don't poop in the woods.
Don't poop in the woods game.
Oh, pound it, bro.
Yeah. So I'm a terrible trail pooper. So the AT, you have privies.
Right.
So, I mean, sure, there might be a brown recluse hanging out on the seat, or a mountain of poop sticking up above the rim. Like, it's a privy. Like, you make do with it. You squat anyway.
And if it's in the Smokies, you're waving at everybody anyways as they walk by.
So I was a privy pooper. I didn't have my first woods poop until right about Waynesboro, Virginia, which is getting close to the halfway point.
Yeah.
And it just something hit me. I took off running up a hill and got behind a tree. I thought I'd be safe. I didn't know the trail kind of boomeranged around this tree.
Oh no!
So like this one guy I was hiking with, I'm like, dude, I'll catch up with you. Well, then I see him like walking right by me again. I'm just like, no. It was a horrible back against a tree, like sitting position, and the flies were attacking. It was a horrible, horrible experience. Then I didn't poop again in the woods till New York, and was right around Blood Mountain, and a tree had fallen down close to where we were camping, and it was far enough away from our campsite, and I sat on the tree, my butt hanging off the back.
Yeah.
And it was perfect.
Yeah, you got to find the right texture, height, location. Yeah. It's a complicated process.
Well, that's like my hammock privy that I was given a few days ago.
Oh yeah, the perfect alternative for
perfect.
you. And then you could tell us your other poop.
The hammock privy is like...
It's called a porta privy?
Porta privy. I like to call it the hammock privy because that's what it is. It's like a little tiny hammock you sit on with a hole in it for your booty.
That's true. And
it's more like a peach hammock, not a banana hammock.
Yes, that's funny.
We'll go with that.
Yeah, I think it's trademarked. Thomas trademarked it as the porta privy, and he's going to sell those. I hope it turns into a big business.
Yeah, that's one of those things I'm not. Now, I would rather I'll do the tent or the tarp. I'll take a tarp out in the woods without having used it before. I'm going to have to figure out a way to use that before I go into the woods because I don't want to mess that up.
I know. If you fall into a mound of poop.
Oh, that would be the worst experience ever. Just having to, because I may have to buy a small suspension just for it. Because you can get suspensions pretty cheap. I know, but I might get like a little more.
Have you felt the suspension?
Yeah.
It's like 800-pound and steel.
I know.
It's not going anywhere.
But ease of setup.
I'll send you
because
a
here's
video.
the thing. Here's my thing. Let me go with this.
Okay.
Let me go with this.
Listen, everybody complain.
There's no complaining.
All right, let's hear it.
This is not complaining. Here's the thing. I have a situation like his where I just got to go.
Yeah, you can't use it in an emergency.
Well, here's the thing. But if I want to go and I need to go, but I still want to be able to use it,
yeah,
I want to set it up fast. I don't have tie knots. So if I can have something where I just throw it around, hook it, and sit down, you better believe that's what I'm doing.
I thought set it up the night before. That way you're morning constitutional.
Then it's cold.
Come on, man.
Yeah, come on, man.
We're in the woods.
Toilet seat's going to be cold too first thing in the morning. So.
Here's what you do, man.
Not going to be that cold. Not if it's like 25 degrees out or something. I'm not going to sit on something that cold in 25 degrees.
Here's the hack for the toilet seat.
If I keep it in my bed with me.
Put an underquilt
or in my hammock with me.
Oh, underquilt.
An undersharman.
That's awesome.
You know, maybe he could come up with that for like winter pooping with a circle that matches the privy. So sure, it's like
he works at UGQ.
It's the warmer privy.
Here's what I think that you should do.
The warmer privy.
If you're worried about how cold it's going to be, here's my little hack. As long as it's clean.
You've never used one. How can you have a hack for this?
No, not for that. Just for toilets in general. This is like a hammock toilet, right?
Sure.
Yeah, it's like those hammock seats. If anybody wants to envision this, it's like a hammock seat with just a hole cut out in the middle. Well, if there's just a regular toilet seat and it's cold, like a privy, and it's 35 degrees outside, as long as the seat's clean, then you can sit down on it and you all may be squatters, may not actually sit on the seats. I sit on the seats.
I sit on the seats.
Yeah, I don't care. I sit down on there.
Sanitizer.
It's with my pants still on. Sit there for about 30 seconds to a minute, let it warm up, then take your pants down, and then the seat's already warm. You could do that with the privy. 30 seconds. It'd take less than that. It's just material like a hammock. It's the same kind of material that hammocks.
That's just too much thought, man.
Well, I don't know what the denier is.
The whole point of me wanting to put the straps up is more for just getting it done faster.
It's really fast, man. It's the turtle. Have you seen the turtle suspensions?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that.
I saw it. It's
a whoosh, whoosh. You see that? Everybody has to watch it on the YouTube
Can you do
channel.
that again real quick?
Whoosh. And then you just tuck it behind it.
What's going on, Hawker?
That's it, man. You just stick it through there and loop it over.
Like I said, I need practice with it regardless.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, I'm not going to go in the woods with that and not practice somehow.
You can practice it in the woods at camp.
Yeah, I can just come to your house, do your backyard.
Well, my trees are way too far apart. They need to be arm's length.
I could just do it on your deck.
That's true. Set it up on the deck.
Poop a couple times on your deck. No big deal.
Oh, it doubles as a nice camp chair anyway. So
yeah, you can use it.
Well, you have a fire pit, right?
I have a fire pit.
I'll just set the fire pit underneath me, and you got fuel.
Oh,
right?
Gross, man. Okay, I want to hear Brian's other. He's only pooped in the woods 3 times.
At least on the AT.
On the AT.
So the third time was similar to the second time, except a good thing to know. Like, make sure the tree is pretty solid.
Oh, sat with your butt hanging off.
Sat on it and was mid poo and fell through the tree. And
no, not in the poop.
I didn't fall into poop, luckily.
Oh,
but I got a nice splinter in my hand.
Oh, gosh.
But everyone heard the tree crash. They're like, "Flash, you okay?" I'm like, just fell on my poo. Like, but I'm fine. But it was clean. It was a clean break.
Oh my gosh.
So I just made adjustments. But yeah, I guess there was one more time. I did the stripper pole. I grabbed the tree, like
that's what I do.
Smaller tree, hang off the back end.
I'm a tree hugger when I do it.
So that seems to work pretty well for me. Sheltoe, I don't think I did any.
I didn't on the Sheltoe once.
Wait a minute. You all were out there for 2 weeks and didn't poop in the woods?
Well, I mean, there was always a place to go. Like, you would walk by gas stations all the time and other stuff, and there was always a place to poop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't think I did on the Sheltoe.
I never did
Superior,
once.
Superior, so they have a toilet at every campsite, and it's like a little fiberglass, like, basically.
Oh yeah, you're waiting until campsite before you're going to the bathroom.
Yeah, but for whatever reason, I didn't eat a whole lot on that hike. Mm-hmm. I had plenty of food. I had food drops that I made. I didn't even grab one of my food drops because I just wasn't eating my food.
Yeah,
and so, like, I think it wasn't the day till I got injured. I think that was my first my first trail poop. That was 9 days in.
Wow, what a crappy day for a trail poop.
Yeah. And that was at the bear campsite. So like I left my backpack and everything down at the fire ring, and I'm like up the hill and in the woods a little bit to the toilet. And every time I hear a little rustling, I'm like looking for a bear and make sure like it's not getting in my food's not getting eaten. And I hadn't doctored up my knee yet, so that was still on my mind too. But like you asked about hiker trash stuff. Yeah.
Just curious, like everybody who's done any kind of through hike, you have done hiker trash stuff.
Yeah.
It's just how it is. You hiked in underwear for like a day or something, didn't you?
Multiple days, man. I was chafed so bad. And I think what it was is
was it cotton underwear?
No, I was using what's that popular brand?
Ex Officio.
I was using
I hate that stuff.
Really?
They don't fit me really well.
I've never had any luck with those. I actually wear Adidas ones that I use. Well, typically if it's summertime, I'm just wearing running shorts. I don't even have it's just the liner, so I don't need it. And then I just use Body Glide with the Arm & Hammer or whatever version of it.
Well, I think mine was just like lack of shower, because sometimes we would wash our clothes but not shower.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So while you're in town, and so you might go like, it wasn't a big deal to go 6 or 7 days without a shower.
Did you use any kind of Body Glide or anything like that?
No Body Glide, just baby wipes, anti-monkey butt powder, or Gold Bond.
Dude, I'm telling you, this guy hooked me up telling me about the Arm & Hammer Body Glide stuff.
Uh-huh.
Priceless. Yeah. I never hike without that.
Yeah, I bought some Body Glide. I still haven't taken it on trail because, most of the time I'm not going on anything that, even if you get chafed, it's going to be that big of a deal. Yeah. Like, if you get chafed on a 3-day trip, it may suck a little bit, but Gold Bond will get you through a little powder.
Yeah.
So when you hiker trash stuff on the trail isn't hiker trash because you're out there. You're doing
it's life.
It. So
yeah.
It's when it comes off the trail with you. so having hiked the AT, there's some things that are now like amateur mistakes that I make. Like I should know better. Like I've hiked the AT, I should know better. I took off for a hike one day after work several years ago, and I got held up at work later, and I took off for the Smokies right away, and I was hiking part of the AT to get to a shelter, and then from there it was like a 22 mile loop, and all trail that I hadn't done yet. I'm trying to get all 900 miles in the Smokies, and so I just go straight from work. I get down to where I can park my car, hiking on the AT. I hadn't really changed clothes, anything like that. Like I think I had on some wicking shorts, but I still had on like cotton underwear. And I'm like, oh, I'll be okay. I'll change it in the shelter.
Cotton underwear's a no-no.
Well, I didn't change it in the shelter. It's pouring rain all night. The shelter's full, so there's really no private place to take off my underwear, put on like my wicking underwear. Uh-huh. So next day, I just start hiking, and I'm wearing this underwear, and I'm like, oh, I'll be okay. I'm just going to be out. I'll get to my campsite, and I'll be okay. It's pouring rain the whole day. I end up hiking 22 miles, do a 22-mile loop that day. Get up to the shelter.
That's like awful.
Back to the shelter. Like, I'm feeling the dehydration more than I'm feeling, like, chafing or anything like that. Uh-huh. I get to my car. I decide to just go on and drive out, find a hotel somewhere. Which actually I just slept in my car that night, but like I'm starting to feel it, and I'm definitely smelling it, and it's just gross. So I drive down out of the mountains. I get to a McDonald's, I go in the bathroom, take off my underwear, and just leave it in a trash can and walk out. And it's just like, that is someone else's problem now.
Yeah, dump site.
Oh, man.
And then just go on my merry way. But yeah, you'll still find me in Crocs all the time. Like
Crocs for sure, man.
Like and like, I mean, every day it's like, if I'm not in work clothes, I'm in like Crocs and my Patagonia shorts, and it stays with you. Like, it's comfort to me.
And you did 2012? Was that when you did the AT? Yeah. Because I knew you back in the late 90s is when we met.
Yeah.
And I don't remember you being into hiking or anything.
Wasn't.
No, I wasn't either.
It wasn't until my first overnight backpacking trip was just with a couple friends from church, and it was 2002, 2003, somewhere in there. It was right before I moved to Glasgow and took a youth ministry job there.
Yeah.
And we just did an overnight on the Rough Trail in Red River Gorge. And it was fun. Like, didn't know what I was doing. I had like a crappy backpack, had a can of beans.
That was dinner?
Yeah, that was dinner. And a box of Lucky Charms. That was breakfast. Like,
that's awesome. I mean, that's awesome.
Gallon of water hanging off my backpack. Like,
that's always my favorite. Like,
I didn't know jack.
That is my favorite one. The gallon of water. Like, I'm not going to say the name of the organization, but they try and get guys to go out in the woods, and instead of teaching them to filter water, they have them all carrying a gallon of water on their back with like a jug of water. And I'm just heavy, like, man. How are you, like, how is this training people to be in the outdoors? That's terrible. You're not supposed to do that. And but that's exactly what they do.
Yeah.
It's amazing how many people that's how they start off.
And none of us, like maybe one or two guys kind of had some experience, but not much. And so it was fun to hang out with them. And that was my first experience. And I'd gone down to the Smokies for something. I grew up going to the Smokies, so I was familiar. Like, it was a national park. I knew there were some hiking trails. I didn't realize how many hiking trails there were.
900 miles.
900 miles. Officially, there's 792 miles worth of trail. Some trails have closed over time. Some trails have been rerouted. There's some trails you can only get to by hiking other trails. So I think the shortest distance it's been done in is like 815 or 20 miles. Benny held the record for like the fastest known time twice. He broke his own record and did it in the shortest number of miles. And then some guy came in this year.
Yeah, and crushed it. Yeah.
And then a lady came and crushed that.
Yeah.
Like, this year's been crazy.
Speaking of that, you're working towards your 900-mile club participation. I don't know what you call it when you actually become a 900-miler, but you're working towards that right now. How far in are you? You're over 500, if I remember.
Yeah, I'm pushing 600 right now.
600. Check that out, dude.
So I haven't been in, this year. I only got in somewhere like 75 miles. I didn't get a lot in this year.
Wow, dude.
I was pushing for 100 miles this year because I knew I was going to do the Superior Hiking Trail. Last year I did 200 down there. Year before I did 100, and the year before I did 50 because I injured my knee right before we did the Sheltoe.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
had to kind of heal up before we started doing our day hikes, and so I've been pushing. The last couple of years, I've been setting goals and trying to hit those.
Do you have a 2021 goal?
Not yet. So this year, my goal was I didn't have a number in mind. I just wanted to finish Tennessee. When I looked at my map, like if you look at a map of the Smokies, you have the Highway 441 that kind of cuts it diagonal. That takes you from Gatlinburg to Cherokee. There's a couple trails, like the two most popular trails, Alum Cave Trail and the Chimney Tops. They're along that road. But if you look at the map, like the other way, the Appalachian Trail cuts across the other diagonal. So you have like an X right in the middle of this big oval. And so once I cut my map up into quadrants like that, it helped me plan my hikes better because I was just kind of crapshoot like, I'll do this trail. I haven't done it yet. Or I'll do this trail way over here.
You needed some organization, some structure.
I started focusing on areas,
yeah, which
gave it structure, but also helped me like appreciate the area more. I could dig into kind of the history of that area, some of the towns around there, kind of learn my way around that area. So I felt more comfortable going in. So now like there were a couple areas like the Cataloochee area I hadn't hiked until last year, and discovered like the huge elk population that live in Cataloochee. And we actually did a hike right around Halloween last year and came out, and the elk were rutting, so you could hear them like grunting and screaming. And then
they sound wild, don't they?
Yeah, and then
it's crazy.
Then you walk out there, and it looks like something off National Geographic because you got one on top of the other. You hear some Barry White in the background, a little champagne flowing. And
have you heard them call, John?
Yes. Oh, yes.
It is crazy.
It's insane.
That bugling.
Yeah, and so it was super cool to experience that. And,
yeah.
And I'm just like Valentine's Day in October. It was just it was super cool. But yeah, so this year, looking at my map, like I had some areas around the Cates Cove area that I hadn't hiked yet. And so I was really focused in on that area. So Townsend, Tennessee is down in there. And so I was able to focus in on that area, got most of it done. Did not expect to get as busy as I did after hiking the Superior. I just needed like one more hike, like one more weekend hike to knock out Tennessee basically.
So you'll get that done easily.
Yeah. So I may save it. I'm starting to have, I'm going to have to start hitting the more remote parts of the Smokies, which is above Fontana Lake.
A lot more driving.
It's more driving, but it's also like there's some of it that you can get a boat shuttle to get into, but it's a lot more like remote.
Yeah.
So there's can't remember the name of the trail, but it pretty much goes along the lake, and there's a lot of trails that connect off that to go up to the AT. So there's some like zigzagging up and down like the mountains that I can do. Probably get knocked out in a couple weekends, but it's going to be some big elevation climb.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Smokies is like the most visited park, I think, in the U.S.
Yeah,
but
because it's free.
Yeah, and if people haven't been there.
It's beautiful, too.
Yeah.
Those are some hard miles around the Smokies. I've never done an easy trail in the Smokies in my backpacking experience. What did you do?
I have the Little River Trail.
Little River Trail, yeah.
Easiest trail in the world. 7 miles, one way, and you come back. It's 1,200 feet elevation. Over 7 miles, and it's just it's uphill the whole way, but it's so mild of an uphill. There's nothing to it. The only parts that might be difficult are a couple of the creek crossings if the water's high.
Yeah.
Outside of that, man, that's an easy hike, and the campsite at the end of it is killer. It's like almost like an island in between 3 forks of a river.
Wow,
it's really cool. It
sounds like a great. Sounds like a great trip in general, but especially if you were a beginner, you want to see something beautiful.
Well, me and my buddy Josh, I contacted Brian. We had like an overnight we wanted to do. We just had an overnight available. And I asked him, I said, you want to go on an overnight? He goes, yeah. And I said, you want to go to the Smokies? He goes, sure. He goes, where? I said, I don't know. So I sent a text to Brian. I said, where's a real simple overnight that's still worth going to? And he told us that one. We did. It was great. Absolutely great. Simple hike. We read, you have to reserve your campsites in the Smoky, so we reserved the campsite, paid for that, and
it's one of my go-tos. If I just need like a day to clear my head, I'll hike out there and camp. So I'll take a hammock with me too. I'll set my hammock up, just lay in it, read a book, and just listen to the creek and just relax.
And it's so relaxing. Like it's so cool because it's literally 3 forks of a river just going around you, and you have to go through one of the forks to get to the island that the campsite's on. But it's like you've got a lower campsite and an upper campsite, and the lower one's a little smaller, but the upper one's huge. You could probably put 10 people up there.
Wow.
And they've got of course, it's the Smokies, so you've got the place to hang your bear bags.
Yeah.
So you don't have to bring a bear line or anything like that.
They have cables all over the Smokies campsite.
It's really nice. Okay. You talked about just a moment ago, and we have to get to this because we're about to wind things down here, but you mentioned that you got really busy after you got done with your through hike. And the reason why is because of your carpentry work.
Yeah.
And so we got about 5 minutes to kill here, and we want this to be your time. You sell everything you can right now about yourself, your YouTube channel, your signs, whatever else you got that you're wanting to sell or that you want people to know about, or
weed
ways they can
weed.
Kidding.
He does not do that. For our parents out there, you did not hear that.
Just kidding.
So, but if you would like to go ahead and just do that right now.
So I love the Smoky Mountains. Grew up going there. It's my playground. It's my sanctuary. It's place I need to go to clear my head. It's a place to go when I'm looking for adventure. It's gigantic. It's beautiful. It's challenging, but it's also just incredible. I love it. So my love of hiking down there and backpacking, I've always we take pictures, we shoot video. We want these things to remember it by. And I started shooting video when I was on the Sheltoy with John. My YouTube is nowhere close to their numbers, but I just love just documenting my hikes. It's trails in a flash,
and they are good videos. Like, just because he doesn't have huge sub numbers, don't be fooled. If you're trying to find good places to hike in the Smokies, there are very few places you're going to find with better videos as far as just telling you where to go and the places you can check out. Because anytime I'm looking into going to the Smokies, I check on your videos to see if there's a place there I'm interested in. So they're fantastic videos.
Yeah, I love going down there and just shooting the beauty that's down there. So I, from hiking and my love of the place, which I won't be surprised if I end up moving down there one day and just being a hermit in the mountains secretly. But I love it. And so my dad is a woodworker. He's retired, but he's always had all these tools and he's always loved like fiddling with wood and stuff. And he bought a machine that does some like fancy carving things. And he's like, I bought this. I want you and your brother to learn how to use it, and you can do some stuff, try to make some money with it or whatever. And I had no interest in it whatsoever. But I'm like, it would be cool to make like a replica trail sign, like just to have a sign of a hike I did and hang it on my wall and like be like, I hiked that trail, and this had all the memories associated with that trail, like just looking at the sign. Same thing as looking at a picture, watching a video. Yeah. And so I made one for me, and then I made one for a couple of my AT friends, and they loved it. They're like, you should be selling these. And I'm like, I don't know. Like it was fun to make, but I don't know. Well, then I guess I posted a picture of it, and Benny Braden saw one, and he's like, could you make this one? I'm like, yeah, I can try. And so I made him an alum cave sign, and he's like, do you have a website you're selling these on? I'm like, no. And he's like, well, you should. So I whipped one up real quick, and he promoted it, and I didn't think anything was going to happen with it. I enjoy doing it as a hobby, but I have to drive like an hour and a half to get to my dad's to do that. And it just kind of took off this year, even in a crazy pandemic year. Other people wanted a trail sign to kind of remember their hikes with. And it's more than just a piece of wood with a carving in it. Like, these people are sharing their memories of their hikes with me. Even so much where I'm getting people talking about like they lost a spouse whose favorite hike was a certain trail. And I had a lady who ordered a couple different signs for me from Christmas. And she said, each one of these trails is my grandkid's favorite trail to hike with their grandpa who passed away this summer. And she was giving each of them that sign.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I'm getting a lot of these like stories of these memories. And that's why I started making these. I wanted to have the memories for myself, and turns out other people do too. So I started making these trail signs, and it's really taken off. So,
and we just had, you didn't notice, but the website was up on the screen just a second ago, scrolling through it so people could see it.
So I don't have a store. It's my side hustle. I work full time and then try to squeeze in hikes, even 300-mile hikes when I can. But yeah, it's you can go to Carpenter Woodworking, Carpenter-Woodworks, I should know this, .com. And not that I should know this, don't type that in the search bar, but Carpenter-Woodworks.com. You'll have to edit this out. That'll take you to the online store. On Instagram, it's Smoky_trail_signs. And they'll put all this in the podcast notes. And then Facebook is Carpenter Family Woodworking. But it's something, the woodworking stuff has brought something to bring me and my dad and brother together, kind of doing kind of similar stuff. And they all have their different things they do. And I like doing the trail signs.
And honestly, I think the reason any of us do the stuff we're doing, like the reason we do the podcast, the reason you make these signs, is to bring the community together.
Yeah.
The backpacking community, because that's one of the coolest things about backpacking is the community. And you're giving people a piece of their backpacking history.
Without having to steal it from...
which is, and I guarantee there are trails that are thankful you make these because of that. Like, because That's a problem. I mean, the shell-toe trace, one of the biggest problems with the shell-toe trace is that people steal the blazes because they want the blazes.
Yeah, because it looks cool.
Yeah, well, it's when I was on the Pinhoti Trail, it was the same thing. It's a cool looking blaze. They want that, they want that chicken foot blaze that they have, and so people just steal them, and they don't realize that they're putting people at risk. Yeah. Because if they're hiking on that trail and they're depending on those blazes to get through the trail, and you're stealing it, you're going to get people lost. And two, it's costing these trail associations, which are not paid people. Most trail associations are all volunteer workers.
Yeah.
And you're causing them to have to spend more money and work harder. And it's neither one's good.
Right.
So what you're doing is you're kind of helping avoid some of that with what you're doing. And like you said, there are people that they're having these memories brought back up, and they're actually telling you about it.
Yeah.
Which that has to be cool for you.
Yeah, it's really cool. And I've gotten to make a couple custom signs of trails outside the Smokies as well, which has been really cool. Cool thing, you guys will hear it first here on this podcast, or you guys live. I've actually been commissioned to make 2 official trail signs for the North Country Trail in Michigan.
Wow, that's awesome.
Commissioned by one of the trail organizations up there to do a sign at both ends of their designated section that will welcome all hikers into that section, tell them who it's maintained by, and these signs will actually be on the trail, posted at each end with mileage to the terminuses on both ends. So
congratulations.
That's exciting. That is cool.
So North Country Trail is
awesome.
Is a large system of trails, which the Superior Hiking Trail is part of.
Right.
So it kind of once they reached out to me, I was like, that's super cool. Now I'm going to have to hike that thing now too. Just
heck yeah, dude.
Be like, hey, I made that. So,
that's awesome. I want to hike it with you. I want to see the signs.
So those will be up in Michigan. I'm not exactly sure where, but I'm going to start. She reached out to me. I'm like, when do you need these by? She's like, oh, no time soon. It's hunting season, and followed by 60 feet of snow and ice season, and then hiking season starts. So I got
next
a couple
spring,
months,
basically, yeah.
So but I'm excited about that. I'll have some legit like signs out on a trail, and so I'm excited for like more opportunities like that that could happen. Having some legit trail signs just to point people the way.
That's cool, man.
So, and until then, like I'm happy to do that for people's memories in their homes or offices or whatever. So.
What's your personal YouTube channel name?
Trails in a Flash.
Trails in a Flash. Is it the same on Instagram?
No. So for the woodworking stuff, it's Smoky _trail _signs. It's hard to say underscore. Smoky Trail
Just look
signs.
up Smoky Trail signs.
Yeah,
You'll find it.
yeah.
That's how I found it.
And then my personal Instagram is Carp Attack. So
Carp Attack.
Carp Attack, yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Awesome. Very cool, man. Well, I appreciate you being on the show, dude.
You.
We could talk forever, man. Like, you got so many stories. I love talking to guys who've just done a lot of through hiking, because the stories are just always like never ending.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why we do this anyways. We love the stories. Yeah. And so appreciate you being on here, and we're going to hang out again. So, So we'll have you back on at some point. Hopefully the next time we have you on, you'll be making trail signs for a lot of different trails. You'll be officially doing this as your job. That would be pretty sweet.
That'd be cool.
That'd be pretty sweet. So for myself and Jerome Stringer.
Yep.
Thank you for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next one.
Adios.